Have you ever looked into the eyes of someone who was on the absolute brink of survival? That moment when there's no strength left, no voice left to scream, just a silent whisper begging someone, anyone, to realize that time is running out. That's exactly what happened that day. 3 small bodies lay stretched out on the cold ground, trembling, too exhausted even to lift their heads. They weren't moans of hunger. They weren't barks of fear. It was something much deeper, much more desperate. It was the last cry for help those puppies could make before it was too late. When we think of abandoned animals, we often imagine scenes of dogs running through the streets, searching for food in garbage cans, fighting to survive with whatever they find along the way. But what happens when this struggle comes to an end? When the body no longer responds? When the paws can no longer support the weight? When even the survival instinct begins to fade? It is at this point that life becomes an invisible countdown, and every second lost can mean the difference between a second chance and an irreversible outcome. These 3 puppies weren't just abandoned. They were on the verge of total collapse, lying there, with their eyes half closed, breathing with difficulty. Every movement seemed to require an energy they simply no longer had. Have you ever been through this? Have you ever felt that anguish of seeing a living being so fragile, so defenseless, where any delay could be fatal? Well, it is precisely at this moment that empathy ceases to be just a nice word and transforms into action, into urgency, into responsibility. The scene was heartbreaking. There was no aggression, no visible fear on their little faces, just a profound exhaustion, as if they had already given up hope of help. And that's where the danger lies. When an animal reaches this stage, it no longer barks, doesn't call for attention, doesn't fight. It simply surrenders. And how many go unnoticed precisely because of this? How many are not found in time because they no longer have the strength even to ask for help? Stay with me until the end, because what happened next was a real race against time. Those puppies needed much more than food and water. They needed immediate care, someone who understood the gravity of the situation and acted quickly. Because when the body can't take it anymore, every minute counts. Every decision can save or condemn. And what you're about to discover may surprise you about how much the lives of these little beings depended on simple yet essential gestures that made all the difference. The rescue was only beginning, but the real challenge was yet to come. And do you know what motivates me to continue sharing these stories with you? It's knowing that on the other side of the screen there's someone who feels, who cares, who also believes that every life deserves a chance. If this topic resonates with you, if something here touched your heart, leave a comment below about what impacted you the most. Tell us, have you ever experienced a similar situation? Have you ever rescued an animal? Or perhaps you know someone who made a difference in the life of an abandoned animal? These stories aren't just mine, they're ours. The stories of everyone who believes that compassion can transform realities. And look, if you've been following along this far, you've already realized that this isn't just any channel. Here, we don't gloss over the pain, we don't ignore the suffering. We dive in headfirst, showing the raw truth, but also showing hope, struggle, and transformation. And this is only possible because you are here, engaged, participating, sharing. Your like, however simple it may seem, helps this video reach more people. And each person who watches is a consciousness awakened, someone who can make a difference in the life of an animal that is waiting for help at this very moment. If you're not yet subscribed to the channel, now is the perfect time to hit that button and activate the bell. Because stories like this, that move, that teach, that transform, will continue to appear here. And your participation is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this kind of content that truly matters. It's not about numbers. It's about creating a community of people who care, who act, who don't turn their backs when the life of a defenseless being is at stake. But going back to those 3 small bodies on the ground, the truth is they had been there for hours, maybe days. And the most shocking thing about all this isn't just the state they were found in, but how many people passed by without really seeing what was happening. Because, you see, when we think of abandonment, we imagine an isolated scene, a deserted place, far from everything. But that's not what happened. Those puppies were in a busy area, with people coming and going all the time. People passed by, glanced at them, and moved on. And it wasn't ill will. It wasn't deliberate coldness, it was something much more subtle, and at the same time much more disturbing. It was the invisibility of silent suffering. Think about it. We live in a world full of stimuli, horns, conversations, music, notifications, constant movement. And in this whirlwind of information and noise, what doesn't scream, what doesn't immediately grab our attention, simply disappears. Those puppies were crying, yes, but it was a weak cry, almost imperceptible. It wasn't a desperate bark. It wasn't a sharp whimper that cuts through the air. It was a soft, muffled whimper, lost amidst the sound of passing cars, people talking, life happening around them as if nothing were wrong. And that's precisely where one of the harshest truths about our society lies. We only see what we are prepared to see. We only hear what we are willing to hear. Those puppies were invisible not because they were hidden, but because their suffering didn't compete with the fast pace of daily life. They were there, exposed, vulnerable, begging for help, but the world around them kept spinning as if they didn't exist. And how often does this happen? How many situations go unnoticed every day simply because they don't make enough noise to get our attention? It's a silent injustice, a cruelty that doesn't need intention to exist, because nobody there was a bad person. Nobody passed by those puppies thinking, I'm going to ignore this suffering. But distraction, haste, and a lack of full attention to what's around us end up creating a kind of collective blindness. And while this is happening, lives are literally fading away, waiting for someone to stop, truly look, and realize that this isn't normal, that this cannot be ignored. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this story isn't just about 3 puppies. It's about how our mindset, our daily decisions, and the way we move through the world can determine whether a life will be saved or lost. How many times have we passed by someone, human or animal, who was asking for help in a way we didn't know how to interpret? How many times have we seen something strange, felt discomfort, but moved on because it wasn't our business, or because someone will do something about it? This transformation of perspective, this change of outlook, is what separates indifference from compassion. And I'm not talking about grand heroic gestures. I'm talking about stopping, observing, questioning what is before our eyes. Those puppies didn't need a miracle, they needed someone to pay attention. Someone who realized that those weak cries, those motionless bodies, that seemingly ordinary scene hid a devastating urgency. And that's exactly what happened. One person stopped, one single person, amidst so many others, had the sensitivity to realize that something was very wrong. She wasn't a rescue specialist. She had no experience with abandoned animals, but she had something far more important: the willingness to see beyond the obvious, to hear beyond the noise, to feel beyond the surface. And that person made the absolute difference between life and death for those 3 little creatures. The impact of this decision is impossible to measure, because when you save a life, you're not just preventing a death, you're creating a new journey, opening up possibilities, generating hope. Those puppies, who were on the verge of death, were given a second chance because someone chose to act instead of passing by. And this should make us think about the power that each of us holds in our hands every day. The hidden truth behind so much abandonment, so many silent tragedies, is that they could be avoided with simple gestures, with attention, with empathy, with the courage not to turn away when something bothers us. And look, I know that life is busy, that everyone has their problems, their urgencies, their priorities. But if there's one thing that stories like this teach us, it's that compassion doesn't need to compete with our routine, it can be a part of it. These puppies were invisible not by choice, but due to collective negligence. And when we understand this, when we realize that the difference between life and death can lie in our ability to pay attention, everything changes. The way we walk down the street changes. The way we look around changes. The way we connect with the world changes. And this change, however small it may seem, has a domino effect that is impossible to ignore. So I want you to reflect with me. How many times have you experienced something that bothered you, but you ignored it because it seemed too small, too distant, or simply because you were too busy. I'm not judging you, I'm inviting you to reflect on this, because I've done it too. Everyone has. But the difference lies in recognizing this pattern and choosing, from now on, to act differently. Those 3 puppies almost became just another statistic, another sad story that no one would ever know about, another invisible number of lives lost due to lack of attention. But that's not what happened. And the behind-the-scenes story of this transformation, the details of how they were rescued, treated, and returned to life, reveal much more than just a beautiful story. They reveal what is possible when we decide that every life matters. If you're feeling this, too, if this reflection resonates with you, comment below. I see, because when we share these truths, when we put into words what we're feeling, we strengthen this chain of empathy and action. And when that person finally approached the puppies, what she saw was much more than 3 tired puppies waiting for their mother. The scene was alarming. Their paws were injured, with open wounds indicating that they had tried to crawl across rough surfaces, probably in search of shelter or water. Each of their breaths was heavy, panting, as if each breath required an enormous effort. And their eyes, those little eyes that should have shone with the typical curiosity of puppies, were opaque, sunken, almost lifeless. The thirst was visible. It wasn't just a common need for water, it was severe dehydration, the kind that gradually shuts down the body. Dry mouth, dark tongue, skin lacking elasticity, clear signs that those small bodies were entering a process of failure. And this is where many people are mistaken. We look at an animal lying down, quiet, and think, it's just tired. But there's a brutal difference between tiredness and collapse. Tiredness passes with rest. Collapse doesn't. Collapse is the limit where the body simply stops functioning. These puppies weren't resting, they were dying. And recognizing that difference is a matter of life or death. Because when we underestimate the seriousness of a situation, we miss the timing to act. And in the case of abandoned animals, especially such young puppies, timing is everything. A few hours difference can be fatal. Dehydration leads to kidney failure. Wounds become infected. Hypothermia sets in. And what seemed to be just a weak animal turns into a complete medical emergency. This awareness, this basic knowledge about warning signs, is something that should be more widespread. Because you don't need to be a veterinarian to realize when something is very wrong. Rapid or very slow breathing, extreme apathy, lack of reaction to stimuli, pale mucous membranes, an abnormal body temperature. All of these are clear indicators that that living being needs immediate help. And the more people who know how to identify these signs, the more lives will be saved. In the case of these 3 puppies, the person who found them had the wisdom not to try to solve everything alone. She understood the seriousness of the situation, felt the real fear that any wrong move could worsen it, and sought specialized help immediately. And that decision, that humility in recognizing that there was something beyond her ability to resolve at that moment, was fundamental. Because rescue isn't just about good intentions, it's about knowledge, preparation, and coordinated action. The behind-the-scenes story of this rescue operation reveals much about the impact that speed and efficiency have in extreme situations. Every minute counted, every decision had to be spot on, and what happened from that moment on was a true journey of transformation. If you also believe that knowledge saves lives, write this down. Knowledge is power, and it was at that moment that reality became even more brutal. The sun was strong, relentless, beating down directly on those fragile bodies that no longer had the energy even to seek shade. The ground temperature was high, and every minute exposed to that intense heat accelerated the dehydration that was already at a critical stage. The combination was lethal. Weakened bodies, without water, without shelter, under a scorching sun, and the clock kept ticking. When we say that time was against them, it's not a figure of speech. It's literal. Severe dehydration in puppies can lead to organ failure in a matter of hours. The heart begins to work at an irregular rhythm, trying to pump blood that is becoming increasingly thick due to lack of fluids. The kidneys collapse, because they cannot filter properly. The brain, deprived of oxygen and essential nutrients, begins to suffer irreversible damage. And all this happens quickly, silently, while that little body slowly shuts down. The puppies were becoming increasingly immobile. It wasn't sleep. It wasn't rest. It was their bodies entering extreme preservation mode, shutting down non-essential functions to try and maintain the bare minimum of life. And this is one of the harshest revelations about situations of severe abandonment. There is a point of no return, a moment when, even with all the intervention in the world, the body has already suffered such profound damage that there is no way to reverse it. And those 3 puppies were dangerously close to that point. The tension was palpable. Every second that passed without assistance was a second less of chance of survival. The person who found them knew this. They could feel the urgency, the real fear that, by seeking help, by delaying a few more minutes, they might return and find those bodies already lifeless. It's a devastating kind of psychological pressure, because you know you are literally holding the fate of lives in your hands, and any wrong decision could be fatal. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this race against time isn't exclusive to animal rescues. It's a hidden truth about any emergency situation. The window of opportunity is much smaller than we imagine. We tend to think there will always be time, that we can wait a little longer, that someone will show up. But reality is cruel and objective. Minutes make all the difference. Quick decisions save lives. And hesitation, however understandable, can cost everything. In the case of these puppies, the rescue mission depended on perfect coordination. They had to be transported carefully, without causing further stress or pain. They had to be kept warm, but not overheated. Hydration had to begin, but gradually, because a collapsing body cannot process large amounts of water at once. Every detail mattered. Every gesture had to be carefully considered, even in the urgency. And while all this was happening, the sun continued to beat down. The environment remained hostile, and those 3 little beings were completely dependent on the speed and efficiency of whoever was trying to save them. The anticipation of the worst was constant, because everyone who has ever been through such a rescue knows there isn't always enough time. Help doesn't always arrive in time. And this awareness, this real fear of losing the battle, is what drives every movement, every decision, every second of action. The behind-the-scenes story of this race against time shows how essential a sense of urgency is in extreme situations. And then something happened that changed everything. A figure approached. It wasn't someone specifically looking for animals in danger. It wasn't a rescue professional on patrol. It was an ordinary person, returning from work, walking down the same street that dozens of other people had passed that day. But this person had something different, the willingness to stop and truly look. She saw the puppies from afar, lying in that strange position to be normal. And instead of just walking on, she slowed her pace. She observed them more closely. And it was in that moment, in that decision to approach and investigate, that the lives of those 3 little beings gained a real chance to continue. Because if she had walked straight past, if she had thought someone will take care of it, or it's probably just tiredness, the story would have had a completely different ending. When she bent down and gently touched one of the puppies, the gravity of the situation immediately became clear. Its skin was cold to the touch, despite the bright sun. Its breathing was almost imperceptible. Its little eyes barely moved. And that's when panic mixed with determination took over. She understood that she had no time to lose, that these weren't puppies that could wait, that every minute of delay could be their last. The impact of this revelation is difficult to describe. It's that moment when you realize you're holding lives in the palm of your hand, literally, and the responsibility that comes with that is overwhelming, but also empowering, because there's no room for hesitation. There's no time for doubt. You act or you lose. And this person chose to act. She picked up her phone and started making calls. She searched for shelters, emergency veterinarians, any available resource that could help immediately. And while she was doing all this, she tried to keep the puppies warm, using her own jacket to cover them, speaking softly to them as if they could understand that someone had finally arrived, that they were no longer alone, that their fight for survival now had an ally. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because that moment when help arrives, that unexpected hero who appears at the right time, is what separates tragedies from miracles. And the hidden truth behind these stories is that there is almost always someone who could have made a difference, but didn't. Someone who saw, but didn't act. Someone who felt the discomfort, but ignored it. And then, finally, that person appears who doesn't ignore it, who doesn't pass by, who decides that life matters enough to interrupt their own day. This mindset of shared responsibility is what transforms communities. Because when we understand that any one of us can be that unexpected hero, that any one of us can be the difference between life and death for a defenseless being, the way we live changes, the way we look around changes, the way we react to discomfort changes. What if she had arrived a little later? What if she had passed by 10 minutes later? It probably would have been too late. She would probably have found only lifeless bodies. And this awareness, this partial relief of having reached the exact limit of what was possible, brings an intense mixture of gratitude and anguish. Gratitude for having succeeded, anguish for knowing how close it came to not succeeding. Hope began to sprout at that moment, but it was still fragile, still dependent on many variables aligning perfectly. And it was during transport to the veterinary clinic that something absolutely extraordinary was discovered. Something that completely changed the perception of the entire situation and revealed a truth about the intelligence and determination of these animals that most people can't even imagine is possible. The puppies weren't there by chance. They weren't simply abandoned there and left to wait. The real story behind those 3 small bodies was much deeper, much more impressive, and at the same time, much more devastating. Through security cameras from nearby establishments and accounts from people who had seen strange activity in the preceding hours, it was possible to reconstruct the journey of those puppies. And what the images showed was breathtaking. They had traveled kilometers. 3 tiny puppies, with still fragile paws, crossing busy streets, crawling across uneven terrain, overcoming obstacles that, for such small bodies, must have seemed like insurmountable mountains. And why? Why would they do that? The answer is both simple and profoundly moving. They were looking for help. They knew, in some instinctive and deep way, that they needed to get to where there were people, that their survival depended on being seen, on being noticed, on managing to get the attention of someone who could understand the gravity of what was happening. This revelation changes everything, because we tend to think of animals, especially such young puppies, as purely instinctive beings, reacting only to basic needs automatically. But what these 3 little ones demonstrated was something much greater: awareness, strategy, determination. They didn't just stand there waiting for something to happen. They went after it. They fought. They walked until they literally couldn't take another step, until their bodies shut down from exhaustion. Imagine the journey they faced. They left a distant place, probably where they were abandoned or born in precarious conditions, and decided they weren't simply going to accept that fate. They crossed streets where cars sped by, risking being run over. They passed through dense vegetation, where they could have been further injured or completely lost. And they continued, step by step, however painful, however exhausted they were, because something inside them told them they needed to reach where there were people. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this ability of animals to perceive that humans can be their salvation is one of the most beautiful proofs of emotional and social intelligence that exists in the animal kingdom. They not only recognize that we are here, they understand that we can help, that we are capable of altering their destiny. And when they choose to seek us out, when they make the enormous effort to come to us, they are performing an immense act of trust, especially considering that many times it was precisely humans who placed them in that vulnerable situation. The impact of this discovery on the rescue team was transformative, because it was no longer just a story of abandonment. It was a story of struggle, of courage, of intelligence. Those puppies deserve to live not only because all life deserves it, but because they had fought for it with a determination that most human beings wouldn't have. And this profound admiration, this respect for the demonstrated willpower, gave an even greater impetus to the rescue efforts. If this revelation surprised you as much as it surprised everyone who found out, comment below. They fought to live, but this fight for survival came at a very high price, a price those small bodies were paying at that very moment, lying on the ground, completely exhausted. Because the truth is that their courage, their determination to travel kilometers in search of help, almost cost them exactly what they were trying to save, their own lives. The journey they made went beyond what such fragile and young bodies can endure. Their injured paws weren't just superficial scratches. They were deep wounds caused by hours of walking on rough surfaces, rocks, hot asphalt, and uneven terrain. Each step they took left literal bloodstains along the way. And yet, they continued. They continued until their paws simply couldn't support them anymore, until every movement became unbearably painful, until their entire bodies entered a state of such extreme exhaustion that shutting down seemed the only option. The severe dehydration they suffered was not the result of a few hours without water. It was the result of immense physical exertion under adverse conditions. They had expended all their energy, burned through all their body's reserves, and now they were literally left with nothing. Their bodies were collapsing, their organs failing, their nervous systems entering maximum emergency mode. And that weak cry, that soft moan that almost no one could hear, was the last resort they had left. It was the final plea for help they could make before completely giving up. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject because the sacrifice they made, the price they paid for their own courage, teaches us something fundamental about the value of life. They didn't know if they would succeed. They had no guarantee that the journey would be worthwhile, that anyone would notice them, that they would be saved. But they did it anyway, because the alternative was simply to give up, and something inside them, some deep and powerful survival instinct, told them it was worth trying. This mentality of fighting until the last breath, of giving everything you have even when the chances seem slim, is something that should deeply inspire us. How many times do we give up before even trying? How many times do we look at a challenge and decide it's not worth the effort, that it's better to accept things as they are? These puppies didn't have that luxury. For them, it was fight or die, and they chose to fight with an intensity that literally consumed everything they had. The emotional impact of understanding this, of realizing that those almost lifeless bodies on the ground were those of warriors, who had given absolutely everything in search of a chance to live, is devastating. Because we look at them and see not only victims of abandonment, but survivors of an epic journey that tested the limits of what is possible for such small and vulnerable beings. And this appreciation of life, this recognition that each breath they still took was a victory won with blood, sweat, and inexplicable determination, completely changes the way we perceive that scene. Behind the scenes of the veterinary care, it was revealed exactly how much that extreme effort had compromised the tiny organisms. And the decisions that had to be made in the first few minutes were absolutely critical. And when those 3 puppies finally arrived at the veterinary clinic, the medical team was impressed, not only by their critical condition, but by the fact that they were still alive. Because technically, considering everything they had been through, considering the journey they had made and the physical price they had paid, they shouldn't have survived that long. But they did, and the reason wasn't luck. It wasn't chance. It was because someone decided to truly care. This distinction is fundamental. We live in a world where superficial observation has become the norm. We pass by people, situations, entire lives without truly seeing what is right before our eyes. And these puppies survived because one person broke that pattern, because she didn't just glance over that scene. She stopped, observed, connected the dots, understood the gravity of the situation, and acted. And this sequence of conscious decisions, this deliberate choice to pay attention, was literally the difference between life and death. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this story isn't just about 3 puppies. It's about all of us. It's about the human responsibility we carry every day even when we don't realize it. How many silent pleas pass you by daily? How many situations of suffering happen right under your nose, but you don't see them because you're distracted, rushed, or simply unaccustomed to looking beyond the surface? This is one of the greatest challenges of our era. Mindfulness has become a scarce resource. We are so bombarded by stimuli, so accelerated in our own pace, so focused on our own urgencies, that we have developed a kind of selective blindness. We filter the world around us to cope with the volume of information, and in this process, important things, important lives, go completely unnoticed. But the hidden truth behind this dynamic is that compassion is not a passive feeling that simply happens. It's an active choice. It's deciding to be present. It's deciding to see beyond the obvious. It's deciding that the discomfort you feel when you perceive the suffering of others is not an inconvenience to be ignored, but a call to action. And when we understand this, when we internalize that the difference between tragedy and salvation often lies in our willingness to pay attention, everything changes. These 3 puppies teach us that suffering doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it's there, quiet, waiting for someone to notice. And if no one notices, it simply disappears, leaving behind another story that no one will know, another life that faded in silence. But when someone notices, when someone decides that life matters enough to interrupt their own day, to step out of their comfort zone, to do something, the impact is immeasurable. The transformation that happened in the lives of these puppies began with a simple gesture. Someone stopped and truly looked. And that same gesture can change realities every day, everywhere, if we choose to practice it. The reflection this story brings us is not about being a hero or making great sacrifices. It's about being attentive. It's about caring. It's about understanding that our conscious presence in the world has the real power to alter destinies. And while these 3 little warriors began their journey of recovery, a new chapter in the story was just beginning. If you believe that attention and compassion can change the world, comment below. I choose to see. And you know what's most incredible about all this? If these 3 little warriors managed to gather the strength to run for miles, overcome obstacles, face extreme pain and exhaustion just to ask for help, the least we can do is not ignore it. The least we can do is ensure that stories like this reach as many people as possible. Because every person who watches, every person who is moved, is someone who can become that attentive gaze that makes a difference in the life of a defenseless being. So I ask you, if this story touched you, if it stirred something inside you, leave a like below. It seems like a small gesture, but it's this gesture that makes this video reach more people, that puts this message in front of people who need to hear it, who may be going through a similar situation right now and don't know how to act. And if you know someone who loves animals, someone who cares, someone who believes that all life has value, share this video with that person. Because stories like this usually need touch hearts. And if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, now is the perfect time. Here, we don't tell half-truths. We go all the way. We show the struggle, the pain, but also the transformation, the hope, the victory. And your subscription supports this type of content that truly makes a difference, that saves lives, that inspires action. Now, with treatment underway and the battle for recovery just beginning, what happened in the following days revealed something even deeper about the resilience of these tiny beings. If you're on this journey with us, comment below. Together we make a difference.